At the end of the day, it's not about what you have or even what you've accomplished. It's about what you've done with those accomplishments. It's about who you've lifted up, who you've made better. It's about what you've given back. Denzel Washington. Welcome to Inspire Vision. Our sole purpose is to elevate the lives of others and to inspire you to do the same.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us. Dr. Doug here for Dr. Doug and Friends Radio. You know, it isn't often that I come across someone who actually owns a very successful business, and yet what they have done with that business and with that experience with that business is to be able to reach out and touch the lives of the community around those. And today we have such a person, Shanette Mitchell. How are you doing, Shanette?
I'm fine. Thank you, Doug.
Now, you own Mitchell Bond Services. Is that correct? Bail Bond Services?
Yes, sir. That's correct. Mitchell Bail Bonds.
All right. So, and then you have developed a nonprofit. And tell us a little bit about that nonprofit.
Yes, sir. About 5 years ago, we wanted to do something that would be impactful to the community because we noticed that a lot of our clients are doing the same thing. They're getting out of jail, but then they find themselves right back in jail by committing another crime or not complying with some sort of condition that the court may have put on them as a result of being out on bond. So we talked to a few clients that we had currently on bond, as well as interviewed people that were coming out of prison. And we wanted to know what were some of the obstacles that they found re-entering into society, or even what are some of the obstacles that they found once they was incarcerated in our local Bexar County jail facility and trying to find work or trying to provide food for their family. And based on what they were able to give us, we came up with a program that can help with some of those resources.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I'd love to just, let's have a good, really honest conversation here. I think that so many times it's difficult for many people here, particularly in the United States, to understand the conditions that not only the African American community experiences. I know that you work a lot with the Hispanic community also.
Yes.
Tell the audience a little bit about what is it that is creating this type of issue for them from a very foundational perspective?
Yeah, you know, a lot of times, Doug, it is if you would, victim of their environment, not having proper resources depending on where they live or where they were raised, where a person was raised. If you have a person, no matter the race, that is in a lower income side of town in San Antonio or whatever part of the world, they are in low performing schools. They are not having high enough wages to be able to sustain their families, then oftentimes they will feel like they have to resort to some other way of providing those means to take care of their family. Unfortunately, in lower income neighborhoods, they resort to crime, selling drugs, using alcohol and things along that nature, robbing people or stealing people, going to the store to steal food items so that they can have diapers for their family, milk for their children, things that people of means will never experience and they cannot understand.
Well, and so, you know, that is really a tragic situation that's going on there. And I guess my question is, what do we do? What can we do here to actually help that situation?
That's an excellent question. And obviously it hasn't been solved yet, or we wouldn't have these problems that we're facing today. One thing in the Bible, you know, God lets us know that, first of all, the poor, they're always going to be with us. So we will never solve that problem of poverty. But I do believe those that are wanting a hand up, not a handout, because there's a difference in the two, but those that are wanting a hand up, if we can remove some of the barriers and the obstacles that one has to go through in order to get some of the resources that are available, that is a beginning.
And so, how as a community do we do that? Because I think that that's something we have so much antagonism going on right now and everything. But how on earth are we able, as a community, in your opinion at least, take the steps necessary to truly help those who want a step up and help up to be able to do that?
In my opinion, Doug, it's about putting those resources in the right hands. Um, I believe, wholeheartedly in organizations that have been established for hundreds of years or 30 and 40 years that have proven themselves on paper to do a good work in the community. They have those funds available to hire executive staff, but it also costs to have executive staff on payroll. A lot of times organizations are so top heavy that it appears that the resources are not getting down to the people that truly need it, because it takes so much to fund an organization. So in my opinion, if resources are put, or at least partnerships are made available to organizations that are out here on the streets, that are connecting face to face with the people, that's also going to create a huge impact, because there's a lot of smaller nonprofits, especially on the east side of San Antonio, that are out here trying to make a difference. They are putting together food drives. They are cooking food and giving things away. I attended one on the east side on Saturday. I stopped by, and that particular organization, they had fish fry and French fries and fried fish for the community, but they also had voter registration cards on site, and they was registering people in those lower income communities that may not have otherwise gone out to register themselves to vote.
So, what are you doing? Tell us a little bit about Home and what you're doing with that.
So, home intervention, when we started, we wanted to focus on 4 areas. Number one was housing. The second area was occupation. The third area is mentorship. And the fourth area is education. Now, for us, being a grassroots organization, we didn't quite know what our housing piece was going to look like, especially because we are not funded by any grants. Really, our for-profit organization, Mitchell Bell Bonds, does the funding for our nonprofit organization, and that does kind of limit some of the services and the resources we have. I can say this, though. With our housing piece, we were able to start off with one home, and we made it a transitional living facility for women. The woman can be single, or she could have up to 2 children. And that was due to the size of the rooms that we were allowing the woman to stay in. It is a communal type living situation, and only thing you need to do to live there is to be a woman and to be in transition. So our board of directors was very intentional about, like I said, removing some of those obstacles that a person face when even trying to get adequate housing. A person with lower income or a criminal background, they have a harder time getting them a place to live, because they may have past history of evictions, or they may have some sort of criminal charge on their record that a property manager don't want to deal with. So our organization wanted to remove that obstacle. We do still perform criminal background checks just so we'll know who resides in the home, but it does not disqualify anyone from living with us. Concerning our occupational piece, Doug, we wanted to work directly with employers that we knew if we send a person to their organization to put in an application, that they really had a chance at getting hired. I've been to many second chance job fairs, and myself just going as a business owner, unbeknown to some of the employers, I will ask this: what if I have a criminal background? Can I still apply for this? And I'm told no. And I say, oh, okay. And I just take my notes and write that down. I feel like if there's a job fair for second chance people, then there should be employers there that at least are willing to hire those that have those criminal backgrounds. I'm not saying that all the employers at these second chance job fairs will not hire people with criminal backgrounds, but out of my experience by attending personally, that was some of the results that I got. So we were looking for small business owners throughout San Antonio. It didn't have to be on the east side, although that's where our office is based out of. But we were looking for employers that understood, the importance of giving people a second chance. And out of that, I was able to secure a partnership with a major staffing company, and he's great. Almost anyone that we send to him, he does, in fact, hire them. And then moving along to our mentorship program, Doug, we have a man-to-man mentoring program. It's called Mentoring Big Brothers. And after much research, we just found sometimes gentlemen that are on bond or on probation, they have a hard time complying with some of the mandated things, such as paying, they have to pay monthly fees, some of them, depending on the charge that they committed. Some of them have to submit to weekly urinalysis tests. Some of them have to install breathalyzer machines on their vehicles in order to be able to drive. They have to breathe into this device. And so we wanted some mentors that have been through the system. And not all of our mentors have been through the criminal justice system, but we wanted people that could relate and understood that it is very important to comply with those extra conditions while they're on bond or while they are on probation, because failure to comply can result in them being back in jail. And then lastly, we have an education piece, but we wanted to focus on some of the court-ordered education classes that are required. So we partnered with another company, and they provide on-site training for us with classes such as anger management, driving while intoxicated, drug offenses, as well as shoplifting. And the fifth course that we offer is cognitive behavior. So those are some of the classes that we focus on, as well as having connections and resources to the local colleges to help people get back in college or finish their GED.
Well, and I know that there's a general sense that there's a lot of recidivism that goes on. They commit a crime, they get out of jail, they go in and commit a crime again, and so forth. And it sounds like what you are literally doing is seeking to help them move above and beyond that into a situation where they can actually have a wonderful life. I know that when I moved a few years ago, I actually hired a company, initially unbeknownst to me, where that was a second chance type of company. And I can tell you, it was one of the greatest experiences I've had with movers. And I've moved a few times, and
Yeah.
I've had them back 2 to 3 times to help me do different things and so forth. And the guys are just amazing. They're absolutely incredible with how they treated my furniture and how they were kind to me and so forth. So as you see this going on, what would you say is the biggest obstacle for someone to be able to move out of and move up from the situation that they basically were born into?
A lot of times I feel it's just about having that opportunity. And again, if a person do not have those skills that are necessary or the education that's necessary, they do not have a clean background, that's already going to eliminate them from a lot of opportunities that other people are warranted. So by having second chance programs in place, we understand that the people coming to us, they already have a few strikes against them, and we just want to make it a little bit easier. Now, look, we know that the playing field is not leveled here in America at all, but there are some good people out here and good organizations such as Home Intervention that understand, and that we want to be here to provide resources that to people that may not have that opportunity given to them.
Well, and let's be honest here. You're a licensed minister, correct?
I am.
Okay, and with that, my sense is that so often we forget how important it is to truly understand the concept of loving others and seeking to really be brothers and sisters to others. And it seems like in the country that's something that we're lacking a bit.
Yes, God told us the most powerful thing is to love. And you're right, we are definitely lacking love. And with all the social media, some of the videos that I love most are those that demonstrate the love of Christ that flows from brother to brother. Love, it really has no color, it has no sex attached to it. Love is something that is freely given, and we should freely give it back. And it's odd though, because love is such a powerful tool, but yet it seems so hard to give love as well as to receive love. And a lot of times it's just because of different ones' backgrounds and their perspective. Sometimes we're afraid to embrace the unknown. And when we talk about our brother and our sister, we don't always look at things the way that Christ looks at things in terms of our brother and our sister. Or when he told us to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. Who is your neighbor? Again, if I'm a person in a lower income part of town, my neighbors, I would consider those that live next to me. Even if I was in the middle class, those are my neighbors. But that's not the way God sees it. We're a whole body of Christ. And if we could just look beyond our current circumstances, and if we could look beyond our family, if we could even look beyond our community and let that compassion flow, then we can begin to see things as Christ see it. You are my brother. The person I don't know, the person I drive next to on the highway, that's my brother, that's my sister. The person in the store, that's my brother, that's my sister. And we never know which one of those have committed a crime and which ones have not. We never know which one has opportunity and which one do not, until we sit down and talk to them and get to know them on an intimate level.
Well, and you shared something interesting. It reminded me when I lived over in Idaho, I had a neighbor. They were an older couple, and they were the sweetest and kindest couple I've met in a long time. And they would do anything for anyone. And they had a fairly large property, and every time I would send my boys over to mow their lawn, they really struggled with accepting that type of service for themselves, although they were willing to give and serve others in a heartbeat. And so, how do we help people to understand that, yes, we appreciate giving service, but be willing to receive it also?
Yeah. That's a hard thing. A lot of it has to deal with pride sometimes. People are so prideful that they feel like they don't want to ask for help. And even sometimes when acts of kindness is extended to a person, it's harder to receive. You're in a more blessed position when you're able to be the giver versus the recipient. So I think it's that pride that will sometimes hinder a person from receiving the help that's extended to them. And even with the work that we do here at Home Intervention Services, I found that handing a person a job does not mean that they're going to do what's necessary to actually get there and perform the job and to retain themselves at that job. So we have a lot of work to do at Home Intervention as well as in the community. The mind is a very powerful tool. And another scripture in the Bible, it tells us to be transformed by the renewing of our minds. I think that mind renewal is what will allow us to get past a lot of the preconceived ideas that we have about people and our neighbors.
Well, and we definitely have mindset for those that have some substantial income and are comfortable. Definitely a mindset for those that are living in the poor communities. How, in your opinion, and based on the experience perhaps that you have seen, how do you help someone to change that mindset on both sides?
Yeah, when we started the nonprofit, someone had handed me a book called Toxic Toxic Charities. And we were doing a food pantry. And at the food pantry, we would see about 300 clients a month. And we thought we were really doing a great thing for the community, like we're giving people food. We had a partnership with the San Antonio Food Bank, and they would deliver like 13 pallets of food. And it was an opportunity where we could give a surplus to these families that we, at the time, we felt were in need. When I took time to sit down and look at some of those bullet points in that book, Toxic Charity, it gave me another perspective. And the book was highlighting some things that we were actually part of the problem. And I'm like, no way. I thought we're doing such a great thing. You know, God told us to feed people and all of this. But, you know, it's like that double-edged sword thing. Um, Nonprofits, sometimes we are part of the problem because we're giving, and we're not teaching a person how to go out there and get that fish so that they can learn how to become a fisher and they can go back and feed their families over a longer period of time. But as well, on the other side, if you are a person of means, I think that you just can't relate. You won't get it. You will not understand. I was listening to an interview by a well-known entertainer, and she was saying how she spent like $400,000 on her daughter's second birthday. And I'm like, are you kidding me? But in this same interview, she was saying how people was talking down on her because she spent that much money. You know, I'm just listening to it and I'm thinking, like, there's no way. For one, I'm not a person that has that type of money to blow away. And I'm thinking, do you know what $400,000 can do for the community? But on the other side, this is something that that particular entertainer, she works hard for. That's her money. And I'm sure she gives in other charitable ways, but we cannot tell people what to do with their money. So for us, what we may think is a waste, for someone else, you know, it may be gain.
Well, but I think you bring up a good point. Yes, there are those that are, you know, have a large income that's coming in and they have their own money and so forth. However, it doesn't take away, in my opinion, the importance of being able to take some of that and to understand that there are those out there, if we can find the right venue, to really help those who have needs. And I think that becomes the challenge sometimes, is finding an avenue where you can invest. If, you know, I've heard the saying that, you know, it's good to invest and to give money. It's better to, and maybe ideally, give of yourself and of your time. And I think sometimes for those that are working really hard and perhaps have that income coming in, how do they find the right resources? Because as you mentioned, there are nonprofits out there that literally think that they're doing good, but the reality is that they're doing more harm than they are good.
That's true. And a person of means, I'm not sure how it is that they tend to support the causes that they get behind and champion. I would imagine we tend to support those things that we are affected by. My family come from a long line of criminal history as well. And even being a bail bondsman, this is something that I see every day. I've been a bail bondsman for over 25 years. So I'm looking at the faces of not only the people that are getting out of jail, but also the faces of the loved ones that are coming in here. Oftentimes it's grandmother, it's grandfather, it may be the wife, it may be the husband or the mother that's coming to get their loved one out of jail. And we have to be more than just a bondsman. You know, we have to be a friend to them. We have to counsel them and offer them any type of support that we're able to offer as well. So sometimes when you have means, you tend to get behind those things that you are challenged with, or that someone in your family is challenged with. If a loved one in my family was affected by breast cancer, that will probably be something that I decided to get behind. And I think when you have means, you will tend to get behind those organizations that are already established, because they have a proven record of accountability, and you can trust that they're going to do right by the money. The smaller organizations, we have a lot of work to do to prove who we are, and maybe that's why we don't get the support that we need or we're seeking.
Well, and I think it's interesting that that is one way. I mean, I remember talking to one of my brothers, and he was sharing with me how he actually had a very good friend down in Los Angeles that really was doing something similar to what you're doing. They were focusing more on trying to make sure that the education was occurring for the low income, so that they'd have an opportunity to rise above what they were experiencing. And and it wasn't so much for him the finances that he was able to help with, but he was able to help with the organization. He was there to really give support. And I think oftentimes we forget that, hey, even if we're not people of means, there are ways that we can support our brothers and our sisters in a way to help them elevate their lives to a point where they're able to start to really experience what they really all deserve to experience. What are your thoughts?
Yes, aside from financial contribution, in-kind donations are some of my favorite, and that's when you're giving in a way, like I said, outside of monetary. It can be of your time, it can be of your expertise. Sometimes it's even looking around your household and noticing that you have too many items and you need to get rid of something. Someone else can probably benefit from that. We were on the news a couple of weeks ago, and the young lady saw the story and she called and she said, I just want to help. Like, what can I do? And I talked to her a little bit more. She said, I'm in a wheelchair. You know, I live in this elderly facility out in Shirts, but I really want to be a part of your organization. And after talking, she said, well, you know what? Do you all need any face masks? And I said, well, sure. And she said, I'm here at home. I'm just going to sew some face masks for your organization. Then she asked, how many did I need? And I said, ma'am, whatever you're willing to give, that's what I'm willing to receive. So she put 50 face masks, she sewed them up and sealed them in a bag. And she called me and she said, I have 50. Is that enough? And I said, I'll take whatever you give. I went over to her house to pick these items up. And like she said, she did live in a senior care type facility in Shirts. She was in a wheelchair. She only had one leg. She told me how she was battling cancer and a lot of other health issues, but how God was still good to her. And I really appreciated that more than any dollar that she could have given to our organization. And not only did that do something for us, you know, something tangible that we can give out to the community, but I'm sure it also added an increase upon her life. So those volunteering time as well, that's invaluable. Every year we put together a big banquet just to say thank you for our brothers and sisters that have come alongside to help us do what we do as well.
Well, and you mentioned, I'm sure you have had some incredible stories of people that you've been able to help. Would you mind sharing maybe a couple of those stories where literally you have been able to help those that are incarcerated come out, find mentors, find opportunities for work where it literally has changed their lives?
Yes. One of my favorite stories is a gentleman. I'm going to call him Robert. That's his first name. He was about 22 years old, and his mother came to us through the Mitchell Bail Bond organization. She needed to bond him out. He had a pretty high bond, and we had offered Robert resources before by way of our mentorship program, and he was like, no, I don't want it, I'm good. He felt like he had so many other things that he needed to do as far as complying with other conditions on his bond, and he said there's no time for that. Well, as time went on, he began to fall behind in his payments on the bail bond side. And sometimes when the client is not paying their bail bond, they can go back to jail because they're not in compliance. So we pitched to him one more time that if he would voluntarily sign up for our mentorship program, that we would work with him a little bit more diligently on the bail bond side. Well, Robert agreed to do so, and we assigned him a mentor that was able, for one, to supply that support to him mentally. He had to get in his head and let him know the charges that he was faced with and the results, what could happen if he continued down the path of not complying with these terms. But that mentor was able to get him a job and to follow up with that young man, as well as to provide him with other resources that he needed. The judge also ordered that Robert would take a class in it was a drug offender course. And so our organization was also able hands-on to provide that certification for him so he can go back to show the court that he had met that particular criteria. Since then, I heard from Robert about a week ago, because things are stirring again with home intervention. It's like we're getting more attention, and people are asking for some of the stories. And so when his mother heard about us as well, I asked how was Robert doing and if she would mind us sharing his story. And it is a success story. He has not gone back to jail. I believe he's had a child since then, and he was saying how he's benefited by some of the things that the mentor was able to offer him in terms of staying out and being a productive member of society. So that's kind of one of my favorite stories. It's so many stories. And one thing about me, I'm a hands-on director as well. So I know a lot of the people personally. At the women's home, we had a young lady that was struggling to keep her job all together. And she was about to lose it because she was being late to work every day. She was about to get terminated from employment. So when I told her about our mission at Home Intervention and how we were going to be starting a women's home, it had not opened yet, she just began to cry as I asked her, would she mind her family being the first family that we could kind of model our program around. She accepted that invitation. Her and her two children moved into our women's home, and we kind of built a lot of our policies and procedures around that model family that we had. She later, while she was in the home, was diagnosed with cancer, and we was able to get some worldwide recognition and resources for her that she unfortunately declined. And her story didn't end out well, that she ended up passing away from the cancer. But while she was there, it was such a blessing to have her in the home and to provide resources for her as well as her children. So those two are some of our favorite in terms of my favorite person that was at the women's home, because I could just see that young lady blossom once she found out that she had a secure place and she didn't have to worry about living motel to motel is what she was doing. She had a full-time job, but she wasn't making enough money to sustain her family. And then the story with Robert, I love that because he was right there in that target area that we focus on. Our program focused on young men between the ages of 18 to 24. Robert was 22 years old, but I love that with a little bit of guidance, he was able to get something inside of him that caused him to change his outlook on life. And with the food program, the stories are endless because our food program would start early in the morning even before the food would arrive, we'd have cars of people that was wrapped around the building waiting to get their food. And I would often go out there personally, hear from the grandmothers, hear from the working families that said they just didn't have enough money to sustain. So they also relied on the food pantries so that they can have food while using the money from their jobs to pay their rent and their utilities.
Oh, that's wonderful. And you mentioned something about the book you read, share the name of that book again, the one that got you to think about ways that you really needed to do things.
Yeah, I don't remember the author, but it was called Toxic Charities. Toxic
Okay,
Charities.
toxic charity. So here's the question. As there are those out listening that decide, you know what, I really want to do something more for my community. I really want to be of help and of service. How do they differentiate between something that would be toxic that they have no idea, yeah, they think it's really good and then yet it's toxic versus doing something that really will be of value and helpful rather than toxic?
On that one, I would say each one reach one. And I love the Bible because it's a great outline as to what we should be doing in terms of helping other people. And Jesus had gave an example, and he told us to visit those that were sick. That's helping at a senior care facility. That's helping out, at a hospital. That's anyone that's your neighbor. If you know that your neighbor is dealing with some sort of sickness, you will be able to fulfill that by stepping outside of yourself, even if you don't partner with an organization. He told us to feed those that needed food. That's real simple. I mean, look around besides your own dinner table. My office downtown is very close to Haven for Hope, and I drive by every day. Not only Haven for Hope, which is a organization that helps our homeless community in a large way, but I look under the bridges to the left and to the right, and you see trash everywhere. But amongst that trash, you see a lump. It's a body that's laying there. That body may not have had food. He told us to give people drink when I was thirsty. He said, when I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. Sometimes just simply handing water to someone will make a world of a difference. Even in my office downtown, I like to keep water. I like to keep little snack packs for people that are getting out of jail because, for one, sometimes they are detained for hours, and it may take up to a whole day to even release them from our local jail facility. So when they get out, they're starving. And by fulfilling that little need as giving them something to eat, I've already done it. God said, when you have done these to the least of these, you have done it unto me. Those that need clothes, like I said, you can look in your own closet. It doesn't have to be new clothes. It can be anything used. Someone else can benefit from it. We have a lot of organizations, like I said, that are doing a great work. Just donate it. You're doing your part.
Well, and I want to review just before we close today, because as you talked about those four different elements that you do with home, I think you also really are talking about how we can help someone to move out of poverty and into at least a situation where they're able to experience life. So go over those four elements again, because I think each one is something that in some way we could choose just one of those and in some way participate in a valuable way. So could you share those one more time?
Yeah, it's our basic needs, the things that the normal person don't even think about. Housing, that's just having a secure, safe, sound place where you could stay, reside, lay your head and not have to worry about someone coming in and doing harm to you. Occupations, that's just finding a job, and being able to go on a path to develop a career where you can have that financial stability to support families. The next piece is mentorship, We all need a mentor. I don't care how much money that you have. There's always someone greater that has more knowledge, that has more experience that they can share to us. And then the third piece is education. And we all know that knowledge is power.
And I think that that becomes the key is if we can mentor, if we can educate, if we can be there to support, what a difference that makes, I think, in the lives of people. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate I really appreciate what you've done here and what the story that you're sharing. And how can we help you as an audience? Are there some specific ways that we can actually help you?
Well, again, to help finances go a long way. If anyone would like to make a contribution to our organization, they can visit the H.O.M.E website, which there's a tab listed there at www.mitchellbellbondservices.com. And it's a tab there that says Home. It gives a little bit about home intervention services, but you can also click on there and donate now. We're also on Facebook. Our Facebook page is MBB501C3. You can always go on there and see any of the most recent updates or needs that we have. But not only that, like we mentioned, giving of yourself. That's also important. We have a location downtown that currently needs renovation. I believe that we can come up with a lot of the finances for materials, but we have not met budget for the labor. So if there's any skilled laborers out there that could come take a look at our building and see what it is that they can do, we would like that building to be turned into a transitional facility for men. And not only that, mentors. We're always looking for, like the Army says, I think it's the Army or the Navy, a few good men. So if there are some men that are listening to the broadcast that said, you know what, I can give of my time, we definitely welcome them aboard. It's not like a little brother or little sister program. These are young men that are in need of mentoring. And we like to say just really connecting them to resources, because I believe that's what mentorship is all about. Showing a person how that they can come out of their circumstances and connecting them directly with some of the tools that we provide in our training for our mentors.
Well, and that's wonderful. And for those of us that do not live within your community, I think what's wonderful is that we can take those suggestions and seek opportunities within our own communities to be able to do the same thing. So,
That's right.
you know what, Shanette, this has been great. I really appreciate what you're doing, and I honor. And I know that we should honor you for what you're doing relative to helping those in your community. And folks, I hope that the stories that she has shared today with us will help each of us to get inspired to do something more, to really reach out to our community and see how we literally can help in whatever way we're capable of helping. And thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to having you join us again soon for the next show. Have a wonderful and safe week.